いいわよ。
前は俺の中にあったものが今全部外にある。
Beginning in the late 1990s, Japanese horror cinema, known as J-horror, experienced a creative and financially successful period. Films about vengeful ghosts, curses, and the breakdown of society that build suspense through the use of unsettling imagery and soundscapes. Chief among these films is Kiyoshi Kurosawa's Cure, a film that helped usher in what I refer to as Japan's second golden age. I'm Jennifer Upton, author of the book Japanese Cult Cinema, The Second Golden Age. Cure blends the conventions of J-horror with elements of the American crime thriller to create a near-perfect film. Director Kiyoshi Kurosawa maintains tension from the first frame to the last, creating a mesmerizing slow-burn masterpiece that subverts the crime thriller subgenre with a supernatural twist. It is the perfect gateway film, inviting the viewer to dig deeper down the rabbit hole of not only J-horror, but also into the works of Kiyoshi Kurosawa himself. Kurosawa's films are filled with bleak urban landscapes devoid of human beings, despite being filmed in a densely populated area like Tokyo. His soundtracks regularly employ a mixture of silence and ambient sound, similar to the works of David Lynch, whose soundscapes similarly evoke a sense of uneasiness, of nefarious things lurking just beyond and beneath a mundane human existence. A great deal of similarity exists between Cure and David Lynch's Blue Velvet, each of which explores the dark, seedy nature of humanity operating just beneath the mask of idyllic modern life. Like Lynch, the plots in Kurosawa's movies often veer off into abstraction, offering no sound conclusions or clear solutions for the characters in his films. Audiences are often left with more questions than answers. And that's the way Kurosawa likes it.
長い暗闇でした。私はそこから一歩も出ることができなくて、ずっと孤独でした。
When asked about the more ambiguous moments in his films, he answered simply, I never intentionally make ambiguous that which should be clear. Nevertheless, Kurosawa's films defy one interpretation and invite many. Cure explores themes of identity using visual and auditory cues of the natural elements earth, air, fire, and water. It also juxtaposes between the rural world, the countryside, and the urban and the city, signifying the changing personal identity of the characters in relation to society and their acceptance of their true selves. To understand the art, we must first examine the artist and his influences.
名前忘れた。住所、年齢、職業。知らない。
Kiyoshi Kurosawa, no relation to Akira Kurosawa, was born in Kobe in 1955, a generation after the great Japanese post-war filmmakers such as Suzuki Seijin and Fukusaku Kinji. He attended Rikyo University, where he studied sociology, while making 8mm films under the tutelage of respected film critic and author Shigehiko Hasumi. When describing Kurosawa's relationship with his mentor in the Midnight Eye Guide to Japanese Film, authors Tom Mez and Jasper Sharp state that Hasumi not only inspired his filmmaking, it also shaped the way Kurosawa looked at films and influenced his personal cinematic tastes. He adopted Hasumi's predilection for American genre cinema, with a preference for such action men directors as Robert Aldrich, Don Siegel, Sam Peckinpah, and Richard Fleischer.
No, Muriel. No. Breathe, Muriel.
As well as a liking for horror specialists such as Tobe Hooper and John Carpenter. At the same time, European art filmmakers like Jean-Luc Godard, Wim Wenders and Eric Romer, who had themselves been weaned on American cinema, and U.S. mavericks like John Cassavetes formed another considerable strand of influences on Kurosawa. Starting in the early 80s, Kurosawa began directing direct-to-video pink and Yakuza films, featuring nudity and stories about gangsters. Among the most notable of this period are Kandagawa Pervert Wars, 1983, and The Excitement of the Do-Re-Mi-Fa Girl, 1985. In the early to mid-90s, he directed the successful V-Cinema, Suit Yourself or Shoot Yourself series, after which he approached the much larger Dai Film Company Limited with a treatment for his 15th feature, Cure. Cure tells the story of Detective Takabe, played by Kurosawa regular Koji Yakusho, who is obsessed with solving a series of random murders recently gripping Tokyo where each victim has an X carved into them. In math, X equals an unknown or variable that must be solved for. In every murder case here, none of the perpetrators deny responsibility for their actions. In every case, their motive is vague and not a single one of them remembers what triggered the violence. I will attempt to solve for X in Cure based on the Roland Barthes method of determining meaning on 3 levels. 1, the obvious, 2, the implied, and 3, the obtuse. In the first murder within this film, we see an average man walking to his destination accompanied by simple upbeat music. The obvious meaning here is that the man is a normal law-abiding citizen engaging in a normal day's activities. The second symbolic meaning begins when the man enters a traffic tunnel. Here the environment goes from light to dark, reflecting the man's internal nature. We see a close-up of the man's hand in a very quick cutaway, ripping a water pipe from its mount, disabling its normal function of carrying life-giving, cleansing water to people's homes. The breaking of the pipe allows the water to spill out from the broken conduit, metaphorically breaking the social infrastructure, allowing the natural element, water, representative of the true identity of the typical everyman, to spill out. In this sequence, the third meaning lies somewhere within the editing that begins to change pace in the tunnel. The sudden introduction of quick cuts feel like the equivalent of cinematic punches when compared to the longer preceding shots. The quick insert of the breaking pipe could be Kurosawa creating his own cinephilic moment as a filmmaker, harkening back to the jarring eyeball slashing in Louis Buñuel's Un Chien Andalou from 1929, an unforgettable moment for any first-time viewer. Takabe, played wonderfully by Koji Yakusho, spends his off hours caring for his wife, who has amnesia. Fumie, played by Anna Nakagawa, spends most of her time in therapy or simply at home listening to an empty washer on the spin cycle. Takabe lives a joyless life, going through the motions of doing what is expected of him. He performs his professional and family duties diligently without joy. It is a powerful performance.
あんたは俺の言葉の本当の意味を理解できる人間だ。
The murders in Tokyo baffle police. During the investigation, Takabe uncovers one man behind all the killings, a young psychology student named Mamiya, who has been employing hypnotic suggestion invented by the German Dr. Franz Mesmer onto random citizens, causing them to kill the people in their lives for whom they harbor repressed resentments. The first time we see Mamiya, he collapses while walking on a beach. A passerby helps him and brings him back home.
ここに間宮と書いてあります。これがあなたの名前なんでしょうか。
知らない。
しかしおそらくあなたは間宮さんです。
After regaining consciousness, Mamiya asks the man, "Who are you?" while lighting a cigarette. For Mamiya, it's not a simple question. He has no identity. He is merely a cipher for Mesmer's techniques. He hypnotizes everyone he comes into contact with. And the next shot, Kurosawa uses the entire frame, as well as depth of field, to convey the connection between fire and identity. The lighter's out-of-focus flame, wielded by Mamiya, fills up the right side. Mamiya is using fire as a hypnotic trigger to elicit the man's true nature. The man answers Mamiya's question as any normal person would.
僕は小学校の教師。家族は妻が一人です。それだけですよ。
But these are only aspects of his external identity. The man is incapable of digging deeper. Mamiya needs to know who the man truly is inside, not just the person the man presents to society. The day after encountering Mamiya, the man murders his wife.
なんか小説で読んだとか映画で見たとか誰かから聞いたとか
While the use of fire in this scene is obvious, we can also find implicit meaning in Kurosawa's use of water when he observes that the first time we see Mamiya on the beach, it's as though he just walked out of the ocean. We also see additional elements of earth and air in this scene. For instance, Mamiya is wearing an earth tone coat and is positioned to appear small in the center of the frame, completely surrounded by the sand of Shirasato Beach. The muted color palette of the shot gives the effect that Mamiya is part of the landscape, like a tree or a rock. The blowing wind mixes with the rhythmic ebb and flow of the winter waves as an ever-present ambient hum of moving air on the soundtrack. It is a sound that Kurosawa repeats in subsequent scenes involving Mamiya, regardless of whether he is outdoors or inside. Since Mamiya can't remember his past, the viewer is left with nothing but the visual and auditory associations with which to interpret the identity of Mamiya as a personification of nature, capable of causing great destruction in modern-day Tokyo, just as a hurricane might. Later, in a hospital, when Mamiya is forbidden from using his lighter, he adeptly switches to another natural element, that of water, to hypnotize a female doctor who also goes on to commit murder. In this case, she murders a co-worker who had treated her poorly. When Takabe is finally allowed to be alone with Mamiya, the two bond in a strange way. It's clear that Mamiya has used his hypnotic abilities on Takabe, this time using water once again. But instead of making him kill right away, Mamiya chooses for Takabe a special purpose to be revealed in the film's conclusion. Why does he choose Takabe? Well, we don't know. Is it because Takabe's wife suffers from a similar ailment to Mamiya? Maybe. It's more likely because Takabe is different. He doesn't answer Mamiya's questions by giving simple surface-level responses. When Mamiya asks, "Who are you?" Takabe opens up to Mamiya and admits that his wife is a burden to him and that his life is full of frustration. Mamiya is fascinated by this. After all the people he has encountered, in Takabe, he finally sees someone willing to look within and describe his frustrations honestly.
あ、そうだよ。女房は俺の重荷だ。お前に言われなくても分かってんだよ、そんなことは。俺は刑事だ。どんな時でも絶対に感情を外に出すな。たとえ家族の前でもそう教育されてきたんだよ。その結果がこれだ。
Mamiya can't remember his own identity, so he lives vicariously through exploring the identities of others. Most people answer his questions superficially, burying their true selves deep inside, but Takabe possesses a self-awareness that captivates Mamiya. Takabe serves as the ultimate therapy patient to Mamiya's bored therapist. The paths of the two men inevitably become parallel. In the meantime, Dr. Sakuma has discovered a videotape which contains very old footage of a woman being hypnotized by an unidentified man who gestures an X with his fingers. The people who cross the path of Mamiya are, in a sense, swept away by mesmerism. Before they meet him, each person's true nature is repressed by their culture, which forces them to conform to society's rules. Once they fall under his influence, their true identities emerge in an uncontrollable fashion, causing them to behave in a way they feel is natural in contrast to their daily lives. Once again, it parallels Barta, who contends that the indescribable fluid characteristic of the obtuse meaning is inherently filmic and can be seen as the passage from language to significance, the founding act of film itself. If the obtuse meaning is inherently part of film language, then it can be concluded that Kurosawa, in his use of water throughout Cure, with its changeable characteristics, is not only exploring the identity of his characters on screen, but is also exploring the nature of film itself by creating moments that possess these characteristics.
きっと海が綺麗よね。
It is noteworthy that water shares many of the same changeable characteristics as the language of film as described by Roland Barthes. In one state, water is fluid and transparent. It can take on the properties of a solid or a nearly invisible mist when subjected to different temperatures. It is mutable, just like the meaning of film. We could think of the varying temperatures that cause changes in water to be synonymous to the role of the spectator. We can look at fire similarly. It can warm us, cook our food, power industry, or it can burn, maim, and destroy. The oppositional relationship of social constructs versus the true nature of mankind in Cure is evident in the decay present in its locations, which includes many dreary abandoned buildings. These bleak landscapes, devoid of trees or any natural beauty, are representative of a greater crumbling of Japan's social infrastructure. In Cure, this sense of emptiness combined with crumbling infrastructure within the frame creates an entropy aesthetic. It is most obviously present in the abandoned warehouse hideaway of Mamiya. The dilapidated building, which is surrounded by the ever-encroaching woods, lies somewhere on the outskirts of Tokyo, although it is never specifically identified as to where. Significantly, it is in this rural countryside location that Takabe comes to terms with his true self and is cured from the repression of social rigidity. He finds himself in a place where nature is growing over past human constructs, and the same thing happens to him on a psychological level.
本当の自分に出会いたい人間はいつか必ずここへ来る。そういう運命なんだ。
There is something surreal in the moment of the film following Takabe's killing Mamiya, which remains fascinating no matter how many times I watch it. It's intangible in Takabe's stride. His arms dangle limply at the sides. His slow gait embodies the obvious meaning of a detective suffering from exhaustion who has just concluded a difficult case. But there's something more here. Yakusho's walk away from the camera. Mamiya has passed on his secret, leaving Takabe to continue his work. Outwardly, the setting reflects ugliness and decay, but Yakusho's body language is so natural and peaceful that it evokes a feeling of calm, as though he's not acting at all, but simply walking through the frame while the camera happened to be rolling. It's the first time we see Takabe in a stress-free state. In this one shot, Kurosawa has captured the entire third meaning of the film when he explains, urban dwellers in Japan are always shifting and waffling between their real selves and their social selves that they've created in order to survive in society. So, in that sense, when I capture the actor in the process of trying to become the fictional character, I have, in fact, created the reflection of the typical Japanese urban dweller straddling the two. I am fascinated with the moment when Takabe steps into the puddle of water during his walk. It signifies his submersion into his new identity. Other natural elements present in the shot include a soft breeze blowing through the broken window, a broken frame from the past through which people gazed out from their work at the freedom of their natural surroundings. A structure created by society, only to be subsequently abandoned and overtaken by nearby trees, grass, and soil. This shot encapsulates all of Kurosawa's representations of identity through earth, air, fire, and water. In the conclusion of Cure, Detective Takabe takes over the role of Mamiya. He is now free. He murders his wife and has a nice dinner out at a cafe, followed by an after-dinner smoke. He casually enjoys one of life's simplest pleasures, lighting his lighter in front of his server. Takabe is no longer a tangled mess of repressed emotions. He is free, and the implications are terrifying. Like Cure, Kurosawa's later films Pulse and Cloud build on the idea of social isolation that erupts into sudden violence and takes the concept one step further into the complete disintegration of civilization and global apocalypse. With Kurosawa, things always start small and quickly spiral out of control.
そんなに俺が
However you interpret films, I don't believe that a film is limited to the beginning and the end of that piece. There's a world before and after that, all over it. And I feel that a film is simply a little window cut out with a little chunk right through it. What I tried to accomplish with Cure was to leave it very open to indicate that there is a world before and after that, and I hope that people get the sense, or maybe the terror at the end, that there may be something else. Kiyoshi Kurosawa. Cure's ending is powerful. Takabe now possesses the power of mesmer. The string of random murders in Tokyo will continue as long as people repress their true identities. The viewer is left to ponder the greater meaning of future events, yet unseen on screen.